Good evening, everybody. My name is Gemma Callow. I am the Communications Manager for Breathes. I'm just going to give it a minute or two in case there's any last minute joiners. But in the meantime, if somebody could please comment in the Q&A box on the right-hand side, just to confirm that you can hear me, please, then we can get the presentation underway. Thank you. Okay, so I'll just wait to get confirmation that you can hear me okay. So I have posted something in the Q&A, so you can just like that if you don't want to type your details in or type anything in. So if you could just confirm that, and then we can get started. That's fantastic. I've had a like, so thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Gemma Callow. I am the Communications Manager for Breathes, leading on stakeholder engagement. I'm just going to talk through tonight, give an overview of how the Clean Air Zone is going to operate and also what support is available specifically for people who work in the Clean Air Zone. So Birmingham's Clean Air Zone will go live on the 1st of June 2021. It is government mandated because we have high levels of air pollution in the city centre or across the city that are dangerously high and having a serious impact on health. So there's some information there on screen. I won't run through them all, but in summary, it contributes to over 900 premature deaths in Birmingham every year. Air pollution is linked to conditions such as heart disease, lung disease and cancer. It adversely impacts on children. So children inhale 3 times more air pollution than adults, just purely because they are closer to the ground and closer to those concentrated exhaust fumes. And bus and taxi drivers who sit and work in the traffic all day are exposed to 3 times more air pollution than any other adult. So on screen is some research that was undertaken before COVID that showed that 50% of all journeys into the city centre were undertaken by car. And of those journeys, 250,000 of them every day were for less than 1 mile. So what the Clean Air Zone intends to do is to deter those high polluting vehicles from entering the city centre, but also see if we can encourage people who are driving those 1 mile journeys to adopt alternative forms of transport or travel, such as walking, cycling or public transport. So it's important to stress the Clean Air Zone is not a congestion charge. We will not charge every vehicle that passes through the area. It will only be the most high polluting. Clean Air Zones are being introduced across the country, and it's up to local authorities to determine the location and which band. In Birmingham, we've selected a band D, which means that we will charge all high polluting vehicles. So that includes private cars. You can see some of the alternatives on screen. Bath, for example, launches with the category C next month. They won't be charging private vehicles, but in Birmingham we will charge all non-compliant vehicles, including buses, taxis, cars and HGVs. So the Clean Air Zone will be everywhere on screen that's blue, so everywhere within the A4540 Middleway, but not the Middleway itself. So if you're in a compliant vehicle, first of all, if your car will not be subject to charges, you do not need to take any action. However, if you have a non-compliant vehicle that is subject to the charges, you can drive around the A4540 Middleway, no problem. But as soon as you enter into that blue area within the zone, you will be subject to the daily charges. We'll have ANPR cameras installed within the zone that will pick up vehicles and will detect those vehicles that are subject to the charging. The charges are £8 a day for cars, taxis and small vans, and £50 a day for HGVs, coaches and buses. A day is midnight to midnight, not 24 hours from when you enter the zone. However, within that midnight to midnight time frame, you can enter and leave the zone as many times as you want for a single charge. You'll be able to pay online or over the phone using the government payment system, which will be launched shortly. And you can pay 6 days before the day you go in, the day you go in, or 6 days after. So you have a total payment window of 13 days. You will not receive a letter or a text or anything like that to let you know that you've entered. There'll be signage going up all around, so about 300 signs around the zone and on the approach, warning you that you're entering the zone and entering a chargeable area. So the onus is on you as a driver to know that you've entered, and is on you as a driver to take responsibility for making payment. It's the same as in London. If you fail to make payment within that allocated 13-day window, you will incur a fixed penalty notice of £120, which will be reduced to £60 if paid within 14 days. So the big question is, will I be charged? Is my vehicle compliant? The best thing to do is to go onto the Brumbury's website, and there you can find a link to the government vehicle checker where you can input your registration details, and it will tell you whether or not you'll be subject to the charge. What we are looking for is vehicles that meet certain emission standards. So if you have a Euro 4 petrol or better vehicle, which is most petrol vehicles manufactured from 2006 onwards, a Euro 6 diesel or better, which is most vehicles manufactured from September 2015 onwards, gas Euro 6, fully electric, fully hydrogen fuel cell, or a hybrid electric meeting those Euro 4, Euro 6 standards, then you will not be charged. I do stress it's the Euro standard, not the date of manufacture. That is just purely for guidance. You can find that information on whether you're Euro 4 or Euro 6 in your V5C logbook, or like I say, the easiest thing to do is to go on the Brumbury's website, enter your registration details and check if you're going to be charged. So despite media reports, the Clean Air Zone is not intended to be a money-making scheme for the council. If we make no money from the Clean Air Zone, then that means we've achieved our objective, because it means we've deterred all high polluting vehicles from entering the area, and we've improved air quality. So for us, the less money we make, the more successful it is. However, we do understand that there will be money made, particularly in the early months, and that money has to be reinvested in transport related projects and policies. It can't go into the council's general budget, and it can't be used for things such as bin collections. So some of the options identified so far for spending that money are controlled parking zones, which around the boundary of the zone, just on the outside, to deter people from parking on the outside and walking in. We recognise that could be an issue for residents, so controlled parking zones will be implemented. We're funding a hydrogen bus pilot scheme, and we're doing some city centre pedestrianisation works to make walking more attractive and safer to do so, and the same with active travel. So those bus lanes, those cycle lanes that you may have seen going in during the COVID lockdowns, it'd be looking to bring those schemes forward and make more permanent. Now, we do recognise that although air pollution is a public health emergency, as declared by the government, we do recognise that the Clean Air Zone will have an impact on some people more than others. So a consultation that was undertaken in 2018, which received 11,000 responses, identified those who are going to need the most support and that bit of extra time to become compliant. So what we are offering are some temporary exemption permits. So if you live within the Clean Air Zone and are the owner of a non-compliant vehicle, you can apply for a temporary exemption for 2 years. That means you can drive that non-compliant vehicle for 2 years from the date the Clean Air Zone goes live. You can apply for that now, but it's not automatic, so you must apply. Particularly for those on this call, there is an exemption for workers. So if you live outside of the zone and there is no limit on where you live, and you work within the zone for at least 18 hours a week and earn less than £30,000 a year, you can apply for a temporary 1-year exemption. So that 1-year exemption will come into force on the 1st of June 2021 and means for 12 months you can drive that vehicle without incurring any charges. You must apply for that. You can apply now. If you are late applying and don't apply, say, until August, you will only have an 11-month exemption. So it's important that if you don't want to incur any charges, you do so and you submit your application as soon as possible. There's also exemptions, which I won't go too heavily into, for commercial vehicles that are registered within the zone. And we're also offering a voucher scheme at 3 medical practices within the zone that offer 24 hours out of hours care. So that's Badger Medical, Atwood Green and the Children's Hospital. That is where people will be able to collect a voucher from reception, which will void any charges. So if you work within the zone, as I mentioned, the application system is now open. So you need to meet the criteria, and this is all on our website, of working at least 18 hours a week at an address within the zone and earn less than £30,000 a year. It's important that the name of the employee applying for the exemption matches the name of the registered keeper of the vehicle. So if you drive a partner or a family member's vehicle and the names don't align, you would not be eligible. What we're looking for when you submit your application is for you to submit evidence of proof of vehicle ownership. So most cases that will involve a V5C vehicle logbook. We need a letter from your employer, which is on company headed paper, stating the name of the employee, the place of work, and the hours that you work every week. There is an example of this letter on our website. You need to make sure it meets all of that criteria, otherwise we will write back to you to request more information. And finally, we need to make sure that you're earning that less than £30,000 a year. So we need a copy of your recent P60 or your most recent tax return if you're self-employed. So those are the criteria there on screen. The reason that £30,000 was picked as a cut-off threshold is because we did a lot of consultation work in the early days with the Children's Hospital, where 80% of their staff earned less than £30,000 a year. And also the median earnings for people working in Birmingham city centre were identified as £27,000 to £28,000. So we've gone slightly above the medium threshold. On screen here are some automatic exemptions or other exemptions that we need to talk through. So motorcycles will not be charged, and normal show vehicles, which are sort of fairground vehicles. Historic vehicles which are over 40 years old will not be charged, and normal specialist vehicles such as recovery vehicles, emergency services. In community and school transport that meets certain criteria, such as ring and ride, we have section, I think it's 19, section 22, the information's on our website. They will not be subject to charges either. It's important to stress that a blue badge does not qualify you for an automatic exemption. It's only vehicles with a disabled or disabled passenger tax class, which is tax class 85, that will be in the V5C logbook. And it's only if you're in receipt of certain benefits will you receive that classification. So blue badge holders are not automatically exempt. In addition to the exemptions, we do also have some financial incentives. Based on the audience on this call, I'll just touch upon some of them. So for Birmingham City Council licensed Hackney and private hire drivers, we've got £15 million of funding to help them upgrade or retrofit or lease electric vehicles. SMEs based in the West Midlands, so small and medium-sized enterprises, they can apply for a share of £10 million of funding to upgrade or retrofit HGVs and coaches. Most importantly for this call is the Scrappage and mobility scheme that we're launching. That will go live before the zone goes live later this year. So we're looking springtime to launch that. And what that means is if you meet that criteria for being a worker eligible for a temporary exemption and a few other terms and conditions that are on our website, you will be able to scrap your non-compliant vehicle, and we will give you £2,000 towards a compliant vehicle. That doesn't need to be a brand new vehicle, it doesn't need to be electric, it just needs to meet that Euro 4, Euro 6 standard. Or we'll give you £2,000 in mobility credit, such as a Swift card that you can use on public transport. That scheme will open in the spring, as I mentioned, and would recommend that you keep an eye on the Brumberries website for more information. So the Clean Air Zone is part of a wider vision for the council. It's not a single project being delivered in isolation. We see it as the catalyst for change, and it ties in with the Birmingham Transport Plan, which you may have heard about. So the big four objectives for the Transport Plan are to reallocate road space, so giving more space to public transport and active travel rather than private car. Transforming the city centre, so some of the pedestrianisation that we've talked about, active travel and low carbon neighbourhoods, and also managing parking demand. So we're looking to rid all free parking within the Clean Air Zone to deter people from driving in private cars. You can find out more about the Transport Plan on the Birmingham City Council website. So as I've just touched upon, the clean air zone is seen as an enabler for change, and these are some of the other things that we are looking to deliver in support of the clean air zone. We are on a route to zero, to be net zero carbon by 2030, so this is one step towards that process. We have also used this as an opportunity to purchase 50 electric Hackney carriages. Electric Hackney carriages are very expensive for our taxi drivers, we appreciate that. So what we would do is rent them and lease them out to the taxi drivers so they have the option to use those if they prefer to. So finally on screen, that's our website, thebrumberries.co.uk, and if you have any questions, it's cleanair@birmingham.gov.uk. I should have said at the start of this call, if you do have questions, please pop them in the chat box, which is on the right hand side of your screen, and I will answer them now for you. But the main message is to go onto our website, check if you'll be charged. If you're not going to be charged, you don't need to take any action. If you are subject to the charges, check if you're eligible for a temporary exemption permit. So I'll just check the chat box now and see if we have any questions. Okay, so I've got one question here. The website states regarding the £2,000 incentive that if you apply for a 1-year exemption, then the £2,000 drops to £1,000. Is that correct? No, that's absolutely not correct. We are encouraging people to apply for the temporary exemption permit to give you that breathing space. And then if you're eligible, to apply for the financial incentive. The £1,000 that I think you're referring to, and I should have probably touched upon. So if you scrap your non-compliant vehicle through a nominated dealership, we will give you £2,000 towards a compliant vehicle. If you decide to keep your non-compliant vehicle, you can still apply for a £1,000 mobility credit. So you can keep that non-compliant vehicle and still have £1,000 towards public transport. So I think that's where that confusion may have come from, but I hope that clarifies things. Okay. I work in the city centre and the building is not exempt, but I have to travel through the zone to get to it. Will I be charged? So it depends on whether your vehicle is compliant or not. So we estimate about 1 in 4 vehicles are going to be subject to the charge. You won't be able to apply for any exemptions if your place of work is not within the zone unless you are a resident. So if you are just passing through in a non-compliant vehicle, you will be subject to those charges. So the most important thing is to go online, check if you're going to be charged. Another question. Where can I find out more about the free parking in the city being removed? Some street parking is currently free after certain hours. Will that no longer be the case? It's another team that's managing the parking side of things. So that's the Birmingham Connected team. I can, after this webinar, I can send you contact details for them and you can raise that with them directly. But I do understand that we are looking to remove all free parking. So it may be a case that resident permits and things are introduced. I will send you the contact details for that team though, as I don't want to misinform you. Okay, another question that's just come in. I moved office in December 2021 to an office in the city centre. Would I need to get another letter from my employer? Okay, so once you've relocated or once your place of work becomes that new office within the city centre, within the clean air zone, subject to meeting all the other criteria, you can then apply for a temporary exemption permit. So we are keeping those exemption permits open once the zone goes live, because we know there will be people moving in and out of the zone and like yourself there, changing offices. So prior to you moving, once it's all confirmed, we would recommend that you apply for that temporary exemption permit, get that letter sent through. Okay, I assume the £30,000 earning threshold is gross pay and not net pay. Is this correct? Yep. So it's the £30,000 that your salary. So that's what we're looking for. There is salaries of £30,000 and less. Not seeing any new questions, so I'll just go on mute for a moment. If you've got any more questions, please pop them in the chat. I make it 7:20. I'll give it till maybe 7:23. So if you have any questions, please post them in. In the meantime, I'll dig out some links for you. Thank you. Okay, I've just seen another question. I have also put the email address in there for the person who asked the question about parking. Thank you for a clear presentation. Thank you very much for your feedback. Appreciate that. Okay, the next question that we've got. The £2,000 you give towards the new car, is that from certain garages or can you buy the car from any place? That's a good question. So we will be appointing a nominated dealership, so you won't just be given £2,000 to put in your bank account. So you would need to buy that vehicle from an approved dealer. I must stress though, we're not looking that you need to buy a brand new car, you know, as long as it meets that Euro 4, Euro 6 compliant, and we do understand you know, not everybody can afford to do that, so there will be a variety of vehicles and costings, etc. available. Are there any other questions? We'll give it another minute or so, and then if there's no further questions, we can wrap this up. I'll just go on mute again for a moment. Okay, so another question that's come through. Would the Swift travel card be registered in your name if you decide to accept the £2,000 Swift card, or can your family members use it? We've been asked that quite a lot, and you can nominate other people to have access to that funding, so you can share that with family, yes. Are there any other questions? Okay, I'll give it till 25 past. It's 23 past according to my watch, so I'll give it another couple of minutes in case there's any further questions. Okay, I've got another question that's just come through. I run a group in Ladywood twice a week, in the evening on a Wednesday and late afternoon on Sundays. This will mean £16 per week for parents. So depending on the vehicles, I must stress again, it's not every vehicle that's going to be charged. So it is 1 in 4 that we're looking at. So potentially, yes, there may be some who will be driving non-compliant vehicles and who will need to pay those charges. However, depending on where they live or work, they may be able to apply for a temporary exemption permit. So with a worker's exemption, for example, if you're eligible for a worker exemption, you will then be exempt for that year, regardless of whether you're travelling to work or not. We can't monitor where you are, why you're taking those journeys into the city centre. So you may work Monday to Friday. If you're going on a Sunday and you have a worker exemption, you wouldn't be charged then either. So I think the best thing to do for the person who runs that group in Ladywood, please share this messaging with your members and get them to check if they'll be charged, and then see whether or not they're eligible for the exemptions thereafter. Is there any way around this? Like we said at the beginning of this webinar, air pollution is a national health emergency. It is killing people. So when we did the consultation, we understand there are lots of people who have a reason that they think is valid for them to still be driving a non-compliant vehicle and not have to pay the charges, but we have to act, we have to do something. So we have identified those who we think are most vulnerable and most affected. So like I say, unless they're eligible for any of the other exemptions, then no, there would not be a way around that. When will you release the names of the garages where you can get a compliant car? Okay, so we are in the final stages at the moment of sorting out the terms and conditions of the Scrappage and Mobility scheme. If you are interested in that scheme, I would strongly recommend that you go on the Brumbury's website and sign up to the monthly Brumbury's newsletter. So as soon as details are confirmed of those garages and dealerships, etc., we will announce on the website, but we will also announce it in the Brumbury's newsletter, and that will come straight to the subscribers. So I'll send a link again after this meeting where you can apply to subscribe for that. But we are hoping, well, not hoping, we will have that scheme open before the zone goes live on the 1st of June. Thank you from the person who runs the Ladywood group. I hope that was helpful. Please do share our information. Are the financial incentives only limited to the vehicle in the household? I'm not entirely sure I understand the question. So with the financial incentives for workers, you would need to be the registered owner / keeper of the vehicle and be the named employee. So provided that you meet those conditions, earning less than £30,000 a year, working 18 hours a week, etc., then it would be per vehicle, yes. So if there's 4 people in a house using one vehicle, you would only get one financial incentive. Hoping that answers the question. Any further questions? I should add, and particularly this may be relevant to the person who runs the Ladywood group, we are running these webinars for workers, residents, and a general overview. From next month, we're also running webinars specifically for faith groups, community groups, and charities. So if you check out our website and check out the events page, we will have more of these going forward that it may be worth sharing with family and friends, etc. I'll give it another couple of minutes then until past and see if there's any further questions. I have just put a link in the chat as well to the Brumbury's newsletter registration for anyone who is interested in the financial incentives and wanting to know when that goes live. I've just put the link in there. I have 2 cars, both non-compliant. Does this mean I can only scrap the one car and not both? Yes, that is correct. You could only scrap the one. I'll give it another minute or so for any last minute questions. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions coming through. I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their evening this evening to find out more about the zone. I hope you have found it helpful. Please do share with family and friends. We want as many people to be as aware as possible. If you are eligible for an application, please apply now for an exemption. At the moment, we can turn those exemptions around very quickly. As we get closer to the zone, we know there's going to be more people applying. The demand is going to increase. It will take slightly longer. So if you want to be covered from the 1st of June, please get those applications in now via the Brumberries website. Thank you all very much and have a lovely rest of the evening. Take care.